Hey everyone, Piano Man Chuck here. I have with me today the Casio Privia PX-350. Now the PX-350 is not discontinued. It's still very much active on the Casio website. It's for sale. You can still get it. It's $699 and it is a great, awesome piano. Now, its successors, if you will, have been broken down into two new models, the Casio CGP-700, which I have in front of me for compact grand piano 700, and the Privia PX-360. Now, for all intents and purposes for this video, the CGP-700 and the PX-360 are pretty much identical. Now, there's a few differences, and the main difference is the CGP-700 comes with sort of a built-in furniture stand, which you can separate this from and take it to gigs with you. But that furniture stand provides some awesome woofers on there, and you get 40 watts of power, which is just fantastic. And the PX360 is basically the newer version of the Privia PX350, and just like the CGP700, it has this awesome built-in touchscreen 5.3 inches color high definitions. Really cool. Alright, so now that we've got that straight, basically the PX350 still going strong, not discontinued, the CGP700 and the Privia PX360, the newer models which were derived from the PX350. So let's go over the differences of everything, and obviously the main difference is the touchscreen, which is awesome. If you look at the PX350 over here, you'll see a lot more buttons and everything that you'll see over here because that touchscreen replaces a lot of those buttons. And when it came to the PX350, whatever you wanted to do, you had to go through their manual and try to figure out what to do. But the touchscreen is so intuitive here that you don't even need to crack open a manual anymore. If you don't know how to use a cell phone, it's basically the same kind of layout as your smartphone. You got a bunch of icons. You can sweep from one screen to another with the flick of a finger. You press an icon and you get a whole bunch of related stuff to that particular icon that you pressed on. Okay, so basically the PX360 and the PX350 use the air or acoustic intelligent resonator for all of its sound samples and so on and so forth, but the 360 has even more sounds, and the CGP700 uses MXI, which is still a really good sound source. It's multi-expressive and everything, but unlike air, it doesn't have things like string resonance or hammer response adjustment, that kind of thing. So, the differences in prices, the PX350, like I mentioned, $699 US that you can get on the internet. $799 for the CGP700, which comes with that furniture stand with two additional speakers built into the stand and a 40-watt amp, basically 40 watts. So cool. And the PX360, which offers everything the PX350 did and more. So as part of the Privia PX350, you did have 250 built-in sounds, 128 of which included the general MIDI sound set. But when you go to the newer models, the CGP700 and the Privia PX360, you now have 550 different sounds or tones built into it. Really cool. And also that includes the general MIDI sound set of 128 different sounds for the general MIDI sound set. Really cool. I love all of these boards. Now, the implementation here, again, the newer models weigh a little bit more. The Privia PX350 weighed in at like 24 pounds, somewhere around there. The newer models, the CGP-700 and the Privia PX-360, weigh in at 26 pounds. The dimensions are pretty much the same. It will still fit in the Privia gig bag, and it's so awesome to be able to have something like this with such a great keyboard action and touch and triple sensor technology that is such lightweight, unbelievable. All right, now, so let's go through some more differences. Now, Casio has been listening to some of the complaints or things that people didn't like or they want to see in future versions when it came to the PX350, and they have implemented those. So just a short list here, just a couple of things. The power switch on the PX350, I took this to a couple of gigs and I accidentally touched the power switch here and I lost power. And I can't begin to tell you how embarrassing that was. So basically, with the newer models, the power switch still in the same location, but you have to not only just touch it, you have to hold that for a few seconds before the power goes off. Very, very good improvement. And the other thing that I had a basic complaint on with all of the Privia models was the transpose function. Transpose is such an important function that a lot of keyboard manufacturers have dedicated buttons for transpose, but Casio didn't have that. You had to go into a menu to get to transpose. They've been listening, and now they have dedicated keys for transpose. Very cool. So that complaint is erased off of the chalkboard too. And when you went to the Privia PX350, you had 6 buttons here that basically chose which sound category you wanted to get to. You had grand piano, electric piano, organ, strings, various, and general MIDI tones. And within those, you would choose whatever particular instrument or tone or voice or patch, they all mean the same thing, that you wanted to get to. And when you come to the CGP-700 or the PX-360, you go into the tone menu over here, and basically they broke that up a lot further. They basically gave you 12 different categories, so finding what you want is a lot easier because recognizing the category you want is a lot easier. The categories they came up with here: piano, electric piano, organ, guitar, bass, strings, brass, reed, synth, ethnic, general MIDI, and drums. Very cool. So it's a lot easier to find what you're looking for, especially now that they have 550 different tones as opposed to only 250 with the PX350. They all have the same general 128 note polyphony, which is pretty cool considering you got something like the Kurzweil Forte, which sells for around $5,000. It also has 128 note polyphony. And if you're willing to spend a little more to go to the next model of Casio, this 560 has double that at 256 note polyphony. Very, very cool, and it's only $1,199 street or internet price. And another thing that's new, everybody likes these models so they can play the piano. That's the main thing they get that for. And somebody like Yamaha has had that for a long time. They've had a button on there that basically no matter where you are in the keyboard, you could just press that button and you're back to grand piano. And Casio just did the same thing with their new models, the CGP-700 and the PX-360. They got a dedicated button for grand piano, so no matter where you're at, you can just hit a button, you're back at grand piano. And I can tell you, as being part of a classic rock band, I really appreciate that because I'm doing some other stuff, like whether it's violin or cello or bass or any other instrument, organ, trumpet, brass. I want to be able to get back to the piano really quick, and that button does that for me. So Very cool. Love it. Thank you, Casio, for listening to all of us and implementing our wishes. The sequencer, even though you had a 17-track sequencer in the PX350 and you have that in the new models as well, it's so much easier to use now in the newer models than it was in the older models. So if you take a look at the videos I've done for the PX350 and the sequencer portion of it and compare that with the video I've done with the sequencer portion for the newer models, night and day. And they made a lot of things a lot easier just by using a touchscreen here. Things like, oh, I don't know, you've got a pitch bend wheel here. Okay? But the way it's set up right now, it defaults to 2 semitones, meaning if I'm pressing a C, I can go up 2 semitones or 2 keys, C, C sharp, D. I can go down 2 semitones, C, B, B flat. So to go more than that, and you can go plus or minus 24 semitones either way. To go more than that, you really had to crack open the manual to do that in the Privia PX350. You do not need to do that in the newer models because it's so easy to do. And speaking of easy and things that make a difference, reverb is a big thing, something that's really big for me. And the reverb on the Privia, you can hear it even though it's set up for something like Hall on this. It just doesn't sound like that. Basically, you go into the reverb menu here, you hit function and reverb, you're in the reverb menu, and you've got, well, let's go over here and do it. And you've got a couple of different reverb types. Right now, I've got it set for a large hall. My choices are off, room, hall, large hall, and stadium. That's it. And when it comes to the CGP-700 or the PX-350, if I go into reverb, not only do I have the reverb type, things like I just listed over there, I have complete control as to how much reverb, anywhere from 0 to 127. And even though they're set for similar reverbs right now, listen to the difference. Much more reverb here. So I can even give it even more. But with the Privia PX350, I felt like even though I'm changing the reverb settings, I really didn't hear much of a difference, which means if I, as a musician, don't hear it, the audience certainly isn't going to hear it. But that's all changed now with the new models. Now, as far as the speakers, and Casio is throwing in an amp and speakers in all of their new models with the touchscreens. They've got the CGP-700, the Privia PX-360, and the PX-560. They all have now a built-in amp and speakers, whereas before, only the Privia PX-350 had a built-in amp and speakers. Well, some of the others did too, but this was more of the Pro model. And that is so cool, but when it comes right down to it, and the Privia had 8 watts per side, total of 16 watts. Same thing with the newer ones, but the Privia PX350 sounded better. And the reason for that, they had bigger speakers than the newer ones do. There's 5.1-inch woofers in here as opposed to 4.1-inch woofers in the newer models. The tweeters, still 2 inches. So not much of a difference, but definitely a difference. The Privia PX350 is still a great keyboard to take with you to a private gig, which doesn't require additional amplification, like if you're going to somebody's living room or a small venue like a coffee shop or something like that. This will serve you well. Not that the newer models wouldn't, they will, but the PX350 still sounds a little bit better with its built-in amp and speakers. The key bed still the same. So you got a phenomenal key bed over here with weighted keys, graded hammer action, and simulated ebony and ivory. So if you're sweating or anything like that, these keys will absorb sweat. You're not going to slip on the keys just because you're sweating, and it is hot on the stage. Now, for those of you that have been following my previous videos, especially with the PX350, I gave you a way of running the PX350 without having to plug into an AC wall outlet using a RAV power battery. Basically, it's a portable battery, rechargeable, that you can take with you and use instead of a power supply. So you can take this anywhere. Same thing with the Privia PX-360. But the CGP-700, different, because it has 40 watts of power when you're using that furniture stand with the 2 built-in woofers in that stand with the ported ducts and everything like that. Requires more power, 24 volts. And I have scoured everywhere I could to try and find a portable rechargeable battery that you can use with this, and I finally found one. It's not a portable battery, but it's basically a UPS that will give you over a couple of hours of power that you can use with this. So basically it's kind of even better than a portable rechargeable battery. But check out my videos for that. Do a search on Privia or Casio and battery power. Cool stuff. Now, as far as the stands, a lot of people are asking me because the CGP-700 has such a cool stand with such cool woofers and an amplifier built into it to give you 40 watts. They're asking you if you can use the PX360 or any other of the new models or even the older models with that. The answer is no. The CGP-700 and its stand are custom designed for each other. For all the other Privia models, you need to use the Casio CS67 stand, which is different. So if you want 40 watts of power, your only choice is to get the CGP-700 and the stand. And it is so well worth it. It's so cool. I can tell you that firsthand. And the last thing I want to mention is these Casio products are so good. Casio is so confident about how these products are that they give you a 3-year warranty. Yes, it says 1 year on the website and all the materials, but if you register it online after you purchase, you get an additional 2 years. So 3 years total of warranty. Very awesome. How many other manufacturers do that? And I want to point out that if you're thinking of buying a used Casio from anywhere, that warranty only applies to the original owner, just like pretty much any other digital piano manufacturer's warranty does. So it might be worth it to you to buy one of these brand new instead of saving a couple $100 and getting a used one if the warranty is important to you. Okay? And as far as sounds, here's the last thing. Let's go with this. That was the CGP-700. Sounds great, doesn't it? Let's do the same thing with the PX-350. Piano Man Chuck. Peace out. Thanks for watching.